Hey, welcome back. Let everything quiet down, and we'll ease into a slow tale from Greek mythology. Before there was a throne on Olympus, before lightning carried authority, and long before the name Zeus meant law, order, or judgment, the Greek cosmos existed in a condition that was neither hostile nor benevolent. It was unfinished. The earliest Greek mythmakers did not imagine creation as a single moment of intention. There was no solitary architect speaking reality into being. Instead, existence emerged gradually, unfolding from a state they called chaos. Chaos was not confusion or violence. It was absence. A vast openness without boundaries. No sky above. No ground below. No direction, no sequence, no separation. Chaos was not a personality. It was a condition. Raw potential without shape. From chaos emerged the first presences capable of definition. Gaia appeared as earth, not merely soil or terrain, but stability itself. Where chaos had no edges, Gaia provided form. Where there had been openness, she brought grounding. Alongside her arose Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath all things, a realm of compression and depth that gave the cosmos dimension. And Eros emerged as well. Not romantic affection, but attraction, the force that draws elements together and makes creation possible at all. These earliest forces reveal a core principle of Greek cosmology. The universe does not begin with morality, it begins with structure. The movement from chaos to cosmos is not a movement from evil to good, but from formlessness to layered reality. Gaia did not rule the cosmos, she generated it. From her came Uranus, the sky, who enveloped her completely. Sky pressed against Earth, without space between them. This union produced the Titans, beings of immense power, who embodied fundamental forces such as time, memory, ocean, light, and intelligence. Yet Uranus feared his own offspring. He forced them back into Gaia's body, refusing to allow succession, refusing to allow separation, refusing to allow the next phase of order to exist. This is the first warning embedded in Greek myth. A ruler who prevents change becomes a threat to existence itself. Gaia, crushed and confined, conspired with her children. Only one Titan dared to act, Cronus. Armed with a sickle formed from the substance of the earth, Cronus overthrew Uranus. In that act, sky was severed from earth, space was created, distance became possible. The cosmos could finally breathe. Cronus did not overthrow Uranus out of virtue or justice. He acted because stagnation had reached a breaking point. Greek mythology rarely frames power shifts as moral victories. They are structural corrections. As ruler, Cronus presided over an era later remembered as a golden age. There was abundance. Labor was unnecessary. Mortals lived close to divine presence. But this peace was unstable, because Cronus inherited the same fear that destroyed his father. He feared succession. Warned that one of his children would overthrow him, Cronus swallowed each of them at birth. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. They were not killed, but imprisoned inside him, frozen in an eternal present. Cronus believed he had solved the problem of time. If nothing new could emerge, nothing could replace him. But this solution violated the logic of the cosmos. Greek myth treats time as unavoidable. You may delay it, but you cannot consume it without consequence. Rhea, Cronus's wife, refused to accept this unnatural equilibrium. When her youngest child was born, she concealed him and offered Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth instead. Cronus swallowed it without hesitation. That child was Zeus. Zeus's survival is not framed as destiny. There is no prophecy fulfilled through fate alone. Zeus survives because deception succeeds where force fails. Intelligence, not strength, disrupts tyranny. Zeus was raised far from the center of cosmic power, hidden, concealed, removed entirely from the ruling structure. He did not grow up wielding authority. He grew up observing its consequences from the margins. This distance shaped him. He learned what closed systems look like from the outside. He learned what fear-based rule does to the world it governs. When Zeus reached maturity, he did not immediately confront Cronus. First, he restored movement. He freed his swallowed siblings, returning them to time and sequence. Whether through trickery, coercion, or cunning, the result was the same. The frozen generation re-entered existence. Only then did war come. The Titanomachy is often remembered as a clash of gods and giants, but at its core, it is a conflict over structure. The Titans represent an incomplete order, powerful, ancient, but incapable of adaptation. Zeus represents a new principle, authority maintained through systems, alliances, and balance, rather than absolute domination. Zeus does not fight alone. He releases the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires, beings imprisoned by Cronus for being too unpredictable. Zeus turns threats into allies. In return, the Cyclops forge thunder and lightning, not merely weapons, but instruments of enforcement. Lightning is instantaneous. It cannot be blocked. It descends from above. It punishes without debate. It is not the weapon of a brute. It is the symbol of judgment. When the Titans are defeated, Zeus does not erase them entirely. Some are confined to Tartarus. Others fade into obscurity. This restraint matters. Order does not require annihilation of the past. It requires containment. With the Titans removed as rulers, the cosmos reaches another threshold. Power stands unclaimed. The question is no longer who is strongest, but who can maintain balance. Zeus does not seize total control. Instead, he divides authority. The sky becomes his domain, not the entirety of existence. The sea goes to Poseidon, the underworld to Hades. The earth remains shared. No single god governs all things. This division is not generosity, it is structural intelligence. Zeus understands what his predecessors did not. Concentrated power invites rebellion, stagnation, and collapse. Olympus is not born as a paradise. It is born as a solution. A solution to endless generational violence. A solution to rulers who fear succession. A solution to chaos without structure. Before Olympus, the cosmos oscillated between openness and tyranny. After Zeus, it enters a phase of managed order, imperfect, often harsh, but stable enough to endure. This is why Zeus matters. Not because he is virtuous, not because he is kind, but because he is the first ruler in Greek myth who understands that authority must be exercised through systems, rather than fear alone. The world of Zeus does not begin with thunder. It begins with the realization that time cannot be swallowed forever. Zeus does not emerge into power as a fully formed ruler. Greek myth is clear on this point. He is not born with authority already written into his nature. He becomes capable of ruling through experience, observation, and adaptation. His rise is not instant. It is gradual, deliberate, and shaped by distance from power rather than immersion in it. Hidden from Cronus, Zeus grows up removed from the central mechanisms of domination that define the Titan regime. This separation matters. The Titans ruled from proximity and force. Zeus learns from absence. While his siblings exist, suspended inside Cronus, neither alive nor dead in any meaningful sense, Zeus experiences time. He grows, he changes, he witnesses cause and effect. In Greek cosmology, this alone gives him an advantage. Accounts of Zeus's upbringing vary, but they share essential themes. He is concealed in remote places, caves, mountains, liminal spaces far from thrones and courts. Nurtured by nymphs, protected by noise and misdirection, his survival depends not on strength, but on secrecy. Even as an infant, Zeus's existence is political. His safety requires coordination, deception, and collective effort. Power, from the beginning, is not solitary. This early environment shapes Zeus's understanding of rule. He does not grow accustomed to unquestioned obedience. He does not command by default. Instead, he exists within fragile networks of trust. If those protecting him fail, he dies. Authority, therefore, is never abstract to Zeus. It is conditional. When Zeus reaches maturity, he does not immediately seek confrontation. This is a critical distinction between him and earlier rulers. Uranus reacted to fear with suppression. Cronus reacted to fear with consumption. Zeus reacts to fear with planning. His first decisive act is not war but restoration. He frees his siblings from Cronus. Whether accomplished through poison, trickery, or divine coercion, the significance is symbolic. Zeus does not eliminate the previous generation by absorbing it. He releases what was frozen. Time begins moving again. Only after restoring balance does Zeus initiate conflict. The Titanomachy is not a sudden explosion of violence. It is a prolonged struggle that reveals Zeus's defining leadership traits. He recognizes that raw power alone cannot defeat entrenched authority. The Titans are older, physically immense, and deeply rooted in the structure of the cosmos. Zeus compensates not by matching their strength, but by reorganizing the battlefield. His most important decision is the liberation of those whom Cronus feared most, the Cyclops and the Hecatonchires. These beings were not imprisoned for weakness, but for unpredictability. Cronus sought stability through control. Zeus seeks stability through integration. By freeing these forces, Zeus signals a new governing philosophy. Power that cannot be eliminated must be incorporated. Chaos, when acknowledged and directed, becomes strength. The Cyclops' gift of thunder and lightning is often misunderstood as mere armament. In mythic logic, these weapons represent legitimacy. Lightning is visible authority. It arrives from above, strikes decisively, and leaves no ambiguity. It does not linger. It judges. By wielding lightning, Zeus does not simply overpower his enemies. He establishes a visual language of command. The Hecatonchires, with their overwhelming physical presence, shift the balance of scale. Battles are no longer contests of individual might, but demonstrations of coordinated force. Zeus understands spectacle. Victory must be undeniable. Throughout the Titanomachy, Zeus does not fight alone. He delegates, aligns, and coordinates. This distinguishes him sharply from both Uranus and Cronus. Zeus's authority grows because it is shared, not hoarded. When the Titans are finally defeated, Zeus again resists the impulse toward total annihilation. Some Titans are imprisoned in Tartarus, others fade into mythic background, and a few remain active within limited domains. This outcome reinforces Zeus's core strategy: containment over eradication. By sparing elements of the old order, Zeus prevents the vacuum that would invite chaos. He does not attempt to reset existence, he modifies it. After the war, Zeus faces a choice that defines his reign. He could claim total dominion. No force remains capable of challenging him directly. Instead, he divides the cosmos. This division is not symbolic, it is administrative. The sky becomes his domain, representing visibility, judgment, and oversight. The sea is granted to Poseidon, embodying volatility and boundarylessness. The underworld belongs to Hades, a realm of inevitability rather than punishment. The earth remains shared, reflecting its role as the stage for interaction rather than domination. This structure reveals Zeus's maturity as a ruler. He understands that authority concentrated in one domain invites rebellion. Authority distributed across complementary realms creates interdependence. Each god governs, but none can rule alone. Zeus's kingship is therefore not absolute in the modern sense. It is supervisory. He enforces agreements, resolves disputes, and intervenes when boundaries are violated. His power lies not in constant action, but in the knowledge that he can act. The psychological transformation from rebel to king is gradual. Zeus must learn restraint. He must resist the same fear that consumed Cronus. This struggle never fully disappears. Zeus is not immune to paranoia or anger. But unlike his predecessors, he does not allow fear to define his entire system. This is why conspiracies against Zeus fail. Rebellions arise, but they lack coherence. The structure Zeus builds absorbs tension rather than shattering under it. The system bends. Zeus's rise, then, is not about destiny fulfilled. It is about adaptation rewarded. He survives because he learns. He rules because he remembers what unchecked authority becomes. By the time Olympus is fully established, Zeus is no longer simply the god who defeated the Titans. He is the god who understood why they had to be replaced. His rule is not gentle, it is not fair by human standards, but it is durable. And in Greek myth, durability is the closest thing to success. Mount Olympus is often imagined as a distant paradise, a shining palace in the clouds, removed from consequence and untouched by struggle. Greek myth presents something far more deliberate. Olympus is not merely where the gods live, it is where order is maintained. To understand Olympus, it must be understood as both place and idea. In the Greek imagination, Olympus exists simultaneously as a physical mountain in northern Greece and as a divine realm inaccessible to mortals. This duality is not a contradiction. It reflects how the Greeks understood sacred space itself, real but layered, present but elevated. The physical Mount Olympus rises sharply above the surrounding plains, often capped with clouds. From below, its summit is frequently obscured, unreachable, and visually separate from the human world. This natural geography made it an ideal anchor for myth. The mountain already looked like a boundary between realms. Myth did not need to invent distance, it only needed to interpret it. Olympus becomes the seat of divine authority because it occupies a vertical axis. It is above the mortal world, yet not beyond it. The gods can see humanity. Humanity can see the mountain, but neither can cross freely. This distance preserves hierarchy. Greek myth rarely describes Olympus in precise architectural detail. This is intentional. Olympus is not meant to feel familiar. What is emphasized instead are functions, halls of assembly, thrones of judgment, spaces of feasting, and vantage points of observation. Olympus is a governing center, not a domestic one. At its heart lies the assembly space of the gods. This is where disputes are resolved, alliances acknowledged, and authority reaffirmed. Zeus's throne is central, elevated not simply by height, but by symbolic gravity. Other gods possess thrones as well, but none occupy the axis of decision. Olympus is structured around visibility. Power is exercised where all can witness it. The gods do not wander Olympus aimlessly. Each domain has spatial implication. Areas associated with council are distinct from those of celebration. Feasting halls reinforce unity through ritual. Shared meals of nectar and ambrosia are not indulgence alone, they are political acts. To feast together is to acknowledge common order. Olympus is also a place of exclusion. Mortals do not belong there. Even favored heroes rarely enter, and when they do, it is temporary and conditional. Immortality is not simply endless life. It is separation from decay, from labor, and from consequence. Olympus embodies that separation. This separation explains why Olympus is elevated rather than hidden. The gods do not rule from secrecy. They rule from distance. Their visibility reinforces awe. Their inaccessibility reinforces reverence. Clouds play a crucial role in this symbolism. Olympus is often described as cloud-wreathed, mist-covered, or shining above vapor. Clouds obscure detail while preserving presence. Mortals can know the gods are there without knowing exactly what they do. Mystery protects authority. Importantly, Olympus is not immune to conflict. Arguments erupt. Alliances fracture. Anger echoes through its halls. But unlike earlier cosmic spaces, Olympus absorbs conflict without collapsing. Its architecture, both literal and symbolic, is designed for tension. This resilience distinguishes Olympus from prior seats of power. Uranus ruled from overwhelming proximity. Cronus ruled from internalized fear. Zeus rules from structured distance. Olympus reflects that shift. Olympus is also timeless. Seasons do not change there. Decay does not intrude. This timelessness reinforces the gods' role as constants against mortal transience. Mortals age beneath Olympus's gaze, while the gods remain unchanged. Yet Olympus is not detached from the world below. Divine attention flows downward. Lightning strikes from its heights. Omens descend. Favor and punishment originate above. Olympus functions as an observation platform as much as a residence. The verticality of Olympus reinforces the Greek worldview. The cosmos is layered. Sky above, earth in the middle, underworld below. Olympus anchors the upper layer, not as the entirety of the heavens, but as the seat of conscious authority within them. Unlike later religious heavens, Olympus is not a place of moral perfection, it is a place of governance. The gods argue, deceive, favor, and punish according to divine logic rather than human ethics. Olympus does not represent goodness, it represents control. This distinction matters. Olympus is not where souls go, it is where decisions are made. The presence of Olympus also legitimizes Zeus's rule. Authority must have a seat. Power without location becomes abstract. Olympus gives Zeus's kingship physical and symbolic grounding. When Zeus speaks, he does so from a place elevated above all others. The gods' continued presence on Olympus reinforces continuity. Even when individual gods act independently, Olympus remains the reference point. Decisions made elsewhere are still measured against Olympian order. In this way, Olympus becomes more than a mountain or a palace. It becomes a stabilizing constant, a reminder that chaos has been contained, that succession has been resolved, and that authority now resides in a fixed center. Before Olympus, power moved violently from one generation to the next. After Olympus, power settles. Not because conflict disappears, but because it now has a place to go. Olympus stands above the world not to escape it, but to hold it together. Once Olympus is established as the seat of divine authority, the question facing Zeus is not how to rule alone, but how to rule without repeating the failures of those who came before him. Greek myth answers this question through structure. Power on Olympus is never singular. It is divided, overlapping, and deliberately imperfect. The Olympian gods are not arranged as subordinates beneath a tyrant. They are arranged as forces within a system. Each god governs a domain, but no domain exists in isolation. This interdependence is the foundation of Olympian stability. Zeus holds the sky, but the sky does not function without the sea below it or the earth beneath it. Storms rise from ocean and land alike. Judgment descends, but consequences unfold elsewhere. Zeus's power is supervisory, not totalizing. Poseidon governs the sea, a realm of instability, motion, and boundarylessness. His domain is vast, uncontrollable, and essential, yet even Poseidon's power is checked. Rivers cross land, seas touch shores, earthquakes ripple upward toward the sky. His authority intersects constantly with that of others. Hades rules the underworld, a domain often misunderstood as punishment. In Greek thought, the underworld is inevitability. It is the destination of all mortal life, regardless of virtue. Hades does not judge souls. He contains them. His realm exists to preserve cosmic balance by preventing the dead from returning unchecked. Importantly, Hades does not reside on Olympus. His absence reinforces a boundary. Death must be governed but not celebrated. By ruling from below rather than above, Hades embodies separation rather than authority. The earth itself remains shared. This is a critical choice. No single god governs the human stage entirely. Agriculture, war, love, wisdom, craftsmanship, and law overlap continuously. Mortals exist at the intersection of divine interests. This shared governance prevents absolute control. No god can shape mortal fate alone. Favor from one may provoke anger from another. Success in one domain invites attention elsewhere. Balance emerges from tension. Olympian domains are not cleanly divided. Athena governs wisdom and war, but not all war. Eros governs violence, but not strategy. Aphrodite influences love, but not loyalty. Apollo commands prophecy, but not destiny. These ambiguities are intentional. They reflect a world where forces overlap rather than resolve neatly. Zeus's role within this system is arbitration. When domains conflict, Zeus intervenes. He does not micromanage divine affairs. He enforces boundaries. This is why Zeus is described as the upholder of oaths. Oaths bind gods and mortals alike. They formalize expectations. Breaking them invites punishment not because of moral outrage, but because broken agreements destabilize the system. The Olympian order also includes limits. Even Zeus cannot act without consequence. Other gods resist him. Hera challenges him. Athena negotiates. Poseidon rebels. These conflicts do not threaten Olympus itself because they occur within an accepted framework. Earlier cosmic regimes collapsed because power was hoarded. Olympus endures because power circulates. The presence of multiple powerful gods creates a feedback loop. Excess in one domain triggers response in another. Violence invites justice. Desire invites consequence. Hubris invites correction. The gods themselves are subject to this rhythm. Mortals experience this system as unpredictability. Favor feels arbitrary. Punishment feels excessive. But from the Olympian perspective, this chaos is regulated. It prevents stagnation. Zeus understands that uniformity leads to fragility. Diversity of power creates resilience. Olympus functions not as a hierarchy of obedience, but as a network of influence. This network extends beyond the 12 commonly named Olympians. Lesser gods, spirits, and personifications fill gaps between domains. Rivers have gods. Winds have rulers. Boundaries are reinforced everywhere. The Olympian order therefore mirrors the natural world as the Greeks perceived it. No single force dominates absolutely. Stability emerges through balance rather than control. This balance is never peaceful. Olympus is loud, disputes are frequent, anger is public, but collapse never follows. Zeus's greatest achievement is not victory in war. It is the creation of a system that can survive disagreement. In Greek myth, perfection is not the goal. Endurance is. By the time Olympus settles into its enduring form, Zeus's authority is no longer defined by conquest. It is defined by enforcement. Greek myth presents Zeus not as a god who rules constantly, but as one who intervenes decisively when order is threatened. His power lies in restraint paired with certainty. Zeus is the guarantor of cosmic law. This does not mean he invents morality or embodies fairness in a human sense. Greek myths make no such claim. Zeus upholds rules that keep the system functioning. When those rules are broken, punishment follows, not as vengeance, but as correction. The most sacred of these rules is the oath. An oath is not merely a promise. It is a binding force that connects speech to consequence. Gods and mortals alike swear oaths, invoking Zeus's name because his authority gives words weight. To break an oath is to introduce instability into the cosmos. Zeus responds because instability spreads. Hospitality, or xenia, falls under this same principle. Hosts must protect guests. Guests must respect hosts. Violations are not personal insults to Zeus. They are breaches in the social fabric that mirrors divine order. When Zeus punishes violators of hospitality, he is defending predictability itself. Justice, in Zeus's domain, is not proportional. It is instructive. Punishments are often severe because they are meant to be remembered. Greek myth is explicit about this. Zeus punishes not to rehabilitate, but to deter. This explains why Zeus's judgments appear harsh. Mortals suffer for acts of hubris. Entire families are punished for single transgressions. Cities fall because one ruler oversteps. From a human perspective, this seems unjust. From the Olympian perspective, it is preventative maintenance. Zeus is deeply concerned with boundaries. Mortals who claim equality with gods, who challenge divine authority, or who attempt to bypass fate threaten the hierarchy that keeps existence coherent. Zeus intervenes swiftly in such cases. Importantly, Zeus does not administer every punishment personally. He delegates. Nemesis enforces retribution. The Erinyes pursue oathbreakers. Other gods carry out consequences within their domains. Zeus authorizes rather than micromanages. This delegation reinforces Zeus's role as king rather than executioner. His presence is felt most strongly in moments of decision, not routine governance. Zeus's control is also symbolic. Thunder is not just a weapon, it is a warning. Lightning announces divine attention. When storms gather, mortals interpret them as signals. Zeus's power communicates before it destroys. Yet Zeus is not infallible. Greek myths frequently show him persuaded, deceived, or constrained. Hera challenges him. Athena counsels him. Fate itself limits him. These moments are not contradictions. They are safeguards. Absolute power without resistance would collapse into tyranny. Zeus's relationship with fate is particularly revealing. He does not command destiny outright. Even he must respect certain outcomes. This reinforces the idea that Zeus governs within a system larger than himself. Despite this, Zeus remains feared. He is not a god of comfort. He is a god of consequences. Worship of Zeus is often reverent rather than affectionate. He is honored because he must be. Greek myth repeatedly emphasizes that Zeus's justice maintains cosmic stability, not individual happiness. Mortals who benefit from this order rarely notice it. Mortals who disrupt it feel its weight immediately. Zeus's kingship therefore rests on credibility. When he threatens punishment, it arrives. When he swears an oath, it holds. His consistency, not his kindness, secures obedience. This consistency marks the final break from earlier rulers. Uranus ruled through suppression. Cronus ruled through fear. Zeus rules through enforcement backed by structure. He does not need to act constantly because everyone knows he can. In the world of Olympus, this knowledge is enough. Law, once established and enforced, sustains itself. And Zeus stands above it, not as its creator, but as its keeper. Although Olympus functions as a system of governance, it is also a family. Greek myth never separates these two realities. Power on Olympus is inherited, contested, negotiated, and constantly tested through relationships. The divine family is not dysfunctional by accident. Its tensions are structural. At the center of these dynamics stands Hera, queen of the gods. Popular myth reduces her to jealousy, but this interpretation misses her political role entirely. Hera is not merely Zeus's wife. She is the legitimizing force behind his kingship. Marriage, in Greek myth, is not romance. It is alliance. Hera governs marriage itself, not happiness, but institution. She represents continuity, lineage, and lawful union. Zeus's authority would lack stability without her presence. This is why Hera cannot simply be discarded or ignored. Her opposition matters precisely because she is integral. The conflicts between Zeus and Hera are not private disputes. They are negotiations of power. Hera challenges Zeus publicly, rallies other gods, and occasionally participates in conspiracies against him. These acts do not destroy Olympus because they operate within accepted boundaries. Dissent is permitted. Overthrow is not. Zeus tolerates Hera's resistance because eliminating it would undermine his own legitimacy. A king without a queen lacks balance. Their marriage embodies tension rather than harmony. Sibling relationships among the Olympians further complicate governance. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades represent a fractured unity. They are equal in origin, unequal in influence. Poseidon frequently resents Zeus's authority, not because Zeus lacks power, but because Poseidon believes authority should be shared more openly. These disputes surface in rebellions, threats, and temporary withdrawals of cooperation. Yet Poseidon never replaces Zeus. The system absorbs rivalry without collapse. Hades, by contrast, rarely challenges Zeus openly. His power is absolute within his domain, but isolated. His absence from Olympus reflects a fundamental truth. Death must be governed separately to preserve order. Hades' detachment stabilizes the system rather than weakening it. The younger Olympians introduce further complexity. Athena, born from Zeus himself, embodies strategy, wisdom, and restraint. She often acts as mediator, advising Zeus and tempering conflict. Her loyalty is intellectual rather than emotional. Apollo and Artemis operate with relative autonomy, enforcing divine will through prophecy, disease, healing, and retribution. Their independence demonstrates trust within the system. Zeus does not need to control every action. Ares represents uncontrolled violence. Unlike Athena, he lacks strategic discipline. His marginalization on Olympus is intentional. Violence without purpose destabilizes order. Ares is tolerated, not celebrated. Aphrodite introduces disruption of a different kind. Desire undermines rational governance. Her influence crosses boundaries effortlessly, yet she too remains essential. Without desire, creation stagnates. Olympus accommodates even destabilizing forces, provided they do not dominate. Family bonds among the gods are not sentimental. They are political realities reinforced through shared origin. Loyalty is expected, but not blind obedience. Zeus's many offspring create overlapping loyalties. Gods favor their children. Mortals born of divine unions complicate hierarchies. Heroes blur boundaries between mortal and immortal. These tensions test Zeus's ability to enforce limits. Hera's hostility toward Zeus's lovers and children is often interpreted as cruelty. Within the system, it reflects her role as defender of legitimate order. Illegitimate power threatens continuity. Despite constant friction, divine family conflicts rarely escalate beyond containment. Punishments are measured. Reconciliation follows rebellion. Memory tempers ambition. This is the key difference between Olympus and earlier regimes. Conflict is expected, not denied. It is managed, rather than suppressed. The gods argue because they are powerful. They remain united because the system survives argument. Olympus endures not because its family is harmonious, but because its conflicts are constrained. In Greek myth, family is not a refuge. It is a battlefield with rules. Despite their immortality, the Olympian gods do not exist independently of humanity. Greek myth makes this relationship explicit. The gods may not need mortals to survive, but they need them to matter. Olympus does not function in isolation. It is sustained through attention, ritual, and recognition from the world below. Mortals, in turn, do not worship the gods out of love or devotion alone. They worship out of necessity. The relationship between Olympus and humanity is transactional but not commercial. Sacrifice is not payment, it is communication. Greek religion does not frame the gods as omnibenevolent caretakers. The gods are powerful forces that influence the natural and social world. Worship exists to negotiate that influence. Through ritual, mortals signal respect, humility, and awareness of their place within the cosmic hierarchy. Sacrifice stands at the center of this exchange. Animals, food, wine, and incense are offered not because the gods require sustenance, but because ritual creates order. The act itself matters more than the material value. To sacrifice is to acknowledge dependence. Smoke rising from altars bridges realms. The physical offering remains on earth. The essence ascends. This symbolic separation reinforces the boundary between mortal and divine. Mortals give without crossing that boundary. Zeus, as king of Olympus, oversees this exchange. He does not respond to every prayer. He responds to violations of structure. When sacrifices are neglected, mocked, or inverted, Zeus intervenes not out of wounded pride, but because ritual neglect weakens cosmic balance. Cities establish patron relationships with specific gods. Athens aligns with Athena. Corinth favors Poseidon. These alliances shape identity, law, and politics. Divine favor becomes civic legitimacy. Kings rule with divine endorsement. Heroes claim descent from gods to justify authority. This lineage reinforces hierarchy. Mortal power is framed as extension, not competition. Yet the gods are selective. Favor must be maintained. A city once blessed may fall if it violates divine expectations. Worship does not guarantee protection. It creates opportunity. Hubris represents the greatest threat to this system. Mortals who claim equality with gods, who refuse sacrifice, or who seek divine power without reverence, disrupt balance. Punishment follows swiftly and memorably. Importantly, mortals are not powerless in this relationship. Cleverness, restraint, and proper ritual can influence outcomes. The gods respond to respect more than obedience. Zeus's role in mortal affairs is indirect. He rarely intervenes in daily life. His presence is felt through storms, omens, and sudden reversals of fortune. These signs remind mortals that oversight exists. The gods also rely on mortals for narrative continuity. Myths are remembered, retold, and preserved by human communities. Without worship, gods fade into abstraction. Olympus persists because it is spoken of. This mutual dependence explains divine jealousy over attention. Gods compete for worship not out of insecurity, but because relevance reinforces power. Ritual calendars regulate time itself. Festivals align seasons with divine cycles. Through worship, mortals synchronize their lives with Olympian order. Even failure reinforces the system. Disasters are interpreted as signs, prompting renewed devotion. Crisis strengthens belief. Olympus watches the world not to nurture it, but to be reflected in it. The gods do not descend to save humanity. They wait to be acknowledged. And in Greek myth, acknowledgement is power. Olympus endures not because it is free from crisis, but because it is built to survive it. Greek myth repeatedly subjects the Olympian order to moments of extreme instability. These moments do not signal weakness. They function as stress tests, revealing why Olympus persists where earlier regimes collapsed. Threats to Olympus arise from two directions: internal dissent and external force. Zeus must confront both, often simultaneously. Internal threats emerge when divine authority is questioned from within. Gods conspire, resist, or attempt to limit Zeus's control. These conspiracies are rarely impulsive. They arise when power appears unbalanced. One of the most telling episodes involves an attempted binding of Zeus by other Olympians. Hera, Athena, Poseidon, and Apollo are said to have restrained him, testing the limits of his authority. This act is extraordinary. It reveals that Zeus's rule is not absolute. Yet the rebellion fails, not because Zeus annihilates his challengers, but because the system closes ranks. Loyalty is restored through intervention rather than punishment. Zeus reasserts authority without dismantling relationships. The message is clear: dissent is tolerated until it threatens cohesion. External threats challenge Olympus itself rather than its leadership. The most significant of these is Typhon, a force of overwhelming chaos, often described as a monstrous embodiment of elemental violence. Typhon is not a rival ruler. He is disruption incarnate. Typhon's assault is not political, it is existential. He threatens to dissolve boundaries entirely, returning the cosmos to pre-Olympian instability. In facing Typhon, Zeus does not rely on negotiation. Chaos cannot be reasoned with. Zeus confronts it directly, deploying thunder and authority in their most absolute form. Victory restores order, but leaves scars. Olympus survives because it adapts. These crises demonstrate an important principle. Olympus is flexible but not fragile. It bends, absorbs impact, and reasserts structure. Memory plays a crucial role in this resilience. The gods remember prior collapses, Uranus's suppression, Cronus's paranoia. These failures inform Olympian response. Punishments following crises are calibrated. Rebels are chastened, not erased. External threats are sealed away rather than obliterated. Containment remains the preferred solution. Zeus's leadership during crisis reveals restraint under pressure. He does not respond to every challenge with force. He escalates only when boundaries are breached irreversibly. Crisis reinforces hierarchy. After each threat, Olympus emerges with authority clarified. Roles solidify, limits are reaffirmed. Mortals witness these upheavals indirectly. Storms intensify. Omens proliferate. Disasters cluster. These signs signal divine struggle without revealing its mechanics. In this way, crises become narrative reinforcements. They remind both gods and mortals why Olympus exists. Without threat, authority stagnates. Without crisis, power decays. Olympus survives because it remembers what happens when order fails. It does not eliminate chaos. It confines it. Olympus communicates its authority not only through action, but through symbol. Greek myth relies heavily on visual and ritual language to convey meaning. These symbols are not decorative. They are functional components of divine order, reinforcing hierarchy, permanence, and separation between gods and mortals. The most recognizable of these symbols is thunder. Lightning is not simply Zeus's weapon, it is his signature. Thunder announces presence before judgment arrives. It commands attention across distance. In a world without constant divine visibility, thunder becomes a reminder that authority exists even when unseen. Lightning also embodies decisiveness. It strikes without warning and leaves no ambiguity. In Greek thought, this immediacy distinguishes divine action from mortal deliberation. Zeus's lightning does not negotiate. It resolves. The throne is another central symbol. Zeus's throne on Olympus represents legitimacy rather than comfort. Thrones mark where decisions are finalized. To sit upon a throne is to occupy the center of consequence. Other gods possess seats of honor, but none share Zeus's central placement. Spatial hierarchy reinforces political reality. Feasting halls play a subtler role. Shared meals of nectar and ambrosia affirm unity among the gods. These substances do not nourish in a mortal sense. They signify immortality itself. To consume them is to participate in eternal continuity. Feasting is ritualized equality. Even Zeus eats alongside the other gods. This shared act acknowledges mutual dependence within hierarchy. Authority is reaffirmed through inclusion rather than isolation. Ambrosia and nectar also separate gods from mortals. Heroes may glimpse them, but consumption remains forbidden. Immortality is not granted casually, it preserves distance. Immortality itself is perhaps Olympus's most defining symbol. The gods do not age, they do not weaken, they remain fixed while the world changes beneath them. This constancy grants perspective but limits growth. The gods do not evolve morally, they enforce rather than learn. Symbols of observation further reinforce authority. Eagles, Zeus's sacred animal, represent vision and reach. From above, they see what others cannot. This reinforces the sky god's role as overseer. Even silence functions symbolically. When Olympus is quiet, mortals sense danger. Divine stillness precedes action. These symbols are reinforced through repetition. Each storm, feast, and assembly renews meaning. Myth does not require innovation, it requires consistency. Olympus remains powerful because its symbols endure across generations. Mortals change, cities rise and fall, symbols remain recognizable. Through symbol, Olympus becomes timeless. Not because nothing changes, but because meaning persists. Olympus does not fall in a single moment. Greek myth never records a definitive collapse of the Olympian order. Instead, Olympus fades, not because it fails, but because the world around it changes. This gradual transition is essential to understanding Zeus's legacy. In the earliest periods of Greek belief, the gods are immediate. Storms are messages, disasters are punishments, favor is personal. Olympus feels close, even when distant. As Greek society evolves, this intimacy begins to shift. Philosophers question divine behavior. Poets reinterpret myth. Thinkers ask whether gods should act like flawed rulers or abstract principles. Zeus transforms from active enforcer into symbol. This transition does not erase Olympus. It reframes it. In classical thought, Zeus increasingly represents order itself rather than a personality. Law replaces thunder. Reason tempers fear. Olympus becomes metaphorical. Roman culture absorbs Zeus as Jupiter, preserving authority while adapting character. Power remains centralized. The symbols endure. The throne remains. Over time, Olympus ceases to be worshipped as a living seat of governance, but it persists as cultural memory. Stories remain because they explain power. Zeus's greatest legacy is not moral instruction, it is structural understanding. Greek myth teaches that authority must be constrained, distributed, and visible. Rulers who suppress succession fail. Rulers who fear change collapse. Olympus teaches that stability requires tension. Even as belief wanes, Olympian concepts shape later political thought. Kings claim divine right. Laws invoke higher authority. The language of order echoes Zeus's reign. Olympus never truly disappears. It becomes reference rather than residence. In literature, philosophy, and art, the mountain remains. The throne remains. Thunder still means judgment. Zeus outlives worship because he represents something enduring, the human attempt to impose order on an unpredictable world. This is why Olympus lingers long after its gods stop being prayed to. Not because it was perfect, but because it worked. Before we close tonight's journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy these slow dives into history and myth. Your support keeps this channel alive and allows us to keep exploring the past together. And wherever you're listening from, at whatever hour this finds you, thank you for spending this time beneath the shadow of Olympus.